Hello and welcome to another pick a card reading. In today's reading, we are going to explore what you're growing towards. We're going to take a look at where you're at, where you're headed, and how you're going to get there. We're going to take a look at what's in your blind spot and any surprises along the way. What are you growing towards? For this reading, I have prepared 3 groups, and I've accompanied the color cards that I've shuffled out with some clippings from my plants. They needed a trim, okay? So no leaves left in vain. I'm going to propagate some of them. Not these, but these were just kind of overflow. Let's start off. Don't have to explain myself. Let's start off with group 1. Group 1. What are you growing towards? We have ripe peach. Look at these beautiful orange colors. It says ripe peach, Georgia peach, time for orange. And then this is your leaf. Now, I love my plants dearly, but do not expect me to know their government names. But look at them. They are gorgeous. So here we have a beautiful multicolored leaf. Let's get you some nice crisp close-ups here. This is group 1 with the beautiful blush oranges. Again, we are exploring what are you growing towards. Now group 2. Your colors are celery garden, elfin sage, olive grove. If you've done my color picking cards before, you have seen this one before. It comes out quite often. I was shuffling my color cards and this one came out and I was like, no, this one comes out all the time. So I put it back and guess what? It came out again. Cannot deny the shuffle. So here we are, group 2, celery garden, and this is your beautiful leaf. And how could I deny that? I think, first of all, these colors match exquisitely, if I may say so. And look at that glitter. Do you see that? Can you? So gorgeous. That is group 2. Group 3, what are you growing towards? We have these lovely purples. It says antique fuchsia. Oh my god, I don't know how to pronounce it in English. Tell me in the comments if you know fuchsia. Fuchsia. I remembered, thank God. Fuchsia. I would have been so mad at myself. Fuchsia. Okay. Sorry, English is my second language, okay? Can we focus? There we go, fuchsia. See, it took the camera just as long as it took me. And then we have pink zinnia bloom and hushed cranberry. And then this is the beautiful leaf with group 3. I feel like this is a little bit of a chaotic opening to this reading today. That's okay. We can grow. Oh, already we're getting messages. We can grow through chaos. This is a beautiful velvety. Bye. Okay, today's gonna be fun. Today is going to be fun. We're just going to embrace it, okay? Stick with me, guys. It's gonna be worth it. You know it. Come on. You know what? It's Mercury retrograde. I'm human. You're along for the ride. Buckle up. Look how pretty. Okay, I need to. I'm doing the most with these leaves. Whew. Okay, now let's center ourselves. Also, I chose this random stick because there's a storm that came through town the other day and the street was filled with branches and sticks. And I thought this was so cool. Of course, it's not going to. I wet it a little bit so that it would stay alive until I did this reading. Look at how cool. Is that not cool? Is that not cool? Am I just a nerd? Oh my god. Directions are not my strong suit today, obviously. I don't know, seeing all the branches in the streets just kind of made me think about how storms, chaos can roll through, and it can be painful to lose aspects of ourselves, but whatever breaks away was not strong enough to withstand. So, you know, sometimes things have got to go, and we can appreciate them as they go. So that's what I'm doing with this here. Okay, now I'm going to hush it. I'm going to give you a moment to zone in or zone out, whichever you need, in order to find which pile is most calling you. And I will meet you at your reading. Timestamps are in the description below. Hi Group 1, this is your reading. If you chose this lovely combination right here, we're going to set that aside and get right into it. All right, buckle in. We are taking a look at what you are growing towards. And for once, I actually have this reading mapped out. I know exactly what we're gonna do. If you've been in Group 1 before, you know that typically Group 1 is where we establish the flow, but I have already established the flow, so let's jump into it. For Group 1, so we're gonna take a look at where you're at now and where you're growing towards. We're gonna get one card where you're at now, where you're growing towards, and then we're going to get 3 cards that kind of serve as a ladder of how you're going to grow towards where you're headed. Okay, Group 1. Where are we at currently? Where are we at presently for Group 1? We have the Ace of Wands coming out in reverse, kind of like, you know, it wasn't quite sure if it wanted to be in the reverse, but it is coming out in the reverse. What are we growing towards? We have the Three of Wands. Love that for you. This is beautiful already. This is already beautiful because this indicates that there is this desire within you for expansion, and it's like you hold yourself back, you know, even the way it's like we may have experienced a couple false starts. We may have experienced some draw in the wrong direction. We may have misplaced this drive, meaning that instead of focusing on healthy expansion, that drive may have been projected on other things. So let's take a look. How are we going to get this to turn upright and use it to our advantage, right? That's what we're growing towards here in this group. How can we make this happen? How is this going to happen for us? For Group 1, how are we growing towards this? We have this Two of Wands in the reverse. We have the Hierophant. I have mapped it out in my head, but I'm gonna run out of space, aren't I? And give me one more. How are we going to get to this Three of Wands? Yeah. Oh, babe, you are going to get sick of yourself first. And trust me, I've been there. I probably am there. You're going to get sick of yourself before you finally commit to yourself. And that's okay. Don't judge yourself for that, because this is giving the vibes of procrastination. And procrastination, you know, you may have been the kind of person that in school, or you may be the kind of person who, when you're in school and there's a task that you need to do and there's a certain deadline, you wait to the very last minute. And because you've been able to get away with that in the past, you know what you're capable of when the pressure comes down on you, right? And then that kind of snowballs into that knowledge of like, well, when it comes down to it, I know what I need to do. That does create this really strong frustration though, because there are things that you want to do and you're having a hard time, you're having a really difficult time organizing it. There are desires that keep flashing up. I'm specifically getting that perhaps like during downtime, actually it's one or the other. It's what's coming through right now is it's one or the other. For some of you, when you have downtime, you start getting all of these ideas. For others of you, it's when you're at your busiest, you start getting all of these ideas. And that's why when you have downtime, you're exhausted. You're like, I can't follow through on them right now. But ultimately, this is something that you want to expand on. So this could be a whole bunch of different things. This could have to do with a career. This could have to do with a craft. This could have to do with anything that really requires dedication on your end. So that this isn't something where you get up on stage and you do it for the first time and you're going to wow the nation and everybody's going to rise to their feet and applaud you. This is something that not just requires, but it deserves practice. It deserves your practice. You should honor it by showing up consistently with this Hierophant card. And then it's the combination of consistently showing up along with that little je ne sais quoi that you have, that little extra, that little va-va-voom that you have, that then puts you in a position to be like, okay, not only do I have my spark, but I'm also prepared. And then it's like nothing stands in your way. The gates open. The gates open. And not only do the gates open, but you demand the gates to be open. This has a lot to do, the Three of Wands has a lot to do with confidence and faith. And here we're lacking a lot of faith. And then we have the Hierophant in smack in the middle of the reading, indicating that not only do we have to employ blind faith, but we have to practice it. This has a lot to do with restoring faith in yourself, because right now you feel you don't trust yourself. You don't trust. It's like, I recognize this energy because it's like you don't trust yourself and yet you know what you're capable of under pressure. Right? You know that you are the magician. You know that you are capable of showing up in a way that awes others and yourself. And yet you're not able to create that pressure for yourself. But clearly you are, right? So what's going to happen, the step between this Two of Wands in reverse and the Hierophant is you getting really sick of yourself and feeling really stuck and feeling like I don't have the means to break free from the situation that I'm in. Now, let me apply this in a very kind of real world way. This would be feeling really frustrated in the job, the career, the major in school that you've chosen, and feeling like it does not satisfy you. Whatever it is that you're doing on a daily basis does not satisfy you, and so you cannot picture yourself growing here. And then the question is, well, if I can't picture myself growing here, then what am I doing standing still? Then comes the dedication to self, because we're getting so sick of that stillness and so sick of ourselves not acting. Then comes the turning to faith. Now that can be turning to quite literal faith, meaning returning to something that reminds you of the divinity within you and that divinity is meant to be honored. Or it can just be returning to something, the faith within you that makes you feel good about yourself, right? Returning to practicing a certain regimen that reminds you of the balance that you are worthy. So that can be as minuscule as a morning routine, as journaling, something that you do on a daily basis that reminds you of like, hey, your every day shouldn't feel the same, and especially if it feels awful, right? There's something that we need to infuse your everyday with that keeps your hope and your faith in your expansion and in your kind of self-care alive, right? This is showing up in ritual to yourself, and that then kind of fuels that belief. This can have sorry, I'm having a hard time because it like all wants to come out at once. This can have to do with doing daily affirmations. But this is really about worshiping yourself because you've been so frustrated with your surroundings and with your inability to change them. So what we need to do is change your perspective and start worshiping yourself more so that you can refuel the magic within you so that you can feel empowered to create change. This is beautiful. Okay, I'm getting lost because this is a beautiful progression of energies. So let's let's try and move this forward. Okay, so what I'm gonna get now is I'm gonna get an archetype card, and we're going to ask an aspect that you should embrace during this journey, something that can help you towards this growth. But ultimately, even if you are frustrated right now, the way to get to this point, which is interesting because we're asking what are you growing towards, and for you it almost feels like you're growing towards being ready to grow towards something. So it's like for this group, the ultimate goal right now doesn't even matter because it's almost like this is about getting you out of bed. This is about getting you dressed. This isn't about like where this isn't about you getting in your car and where's the destination that you're headed towards. This is about you doing the first steps, getting out of bed, brushing your teeth. And I know this sounds very literal. This is a metaphor, but it could be very literal because it could be that you've kind of lost some of the enjoyment of routine. Okay, what is an aspect that group 1 should embrace to help support this growth? We got a couple cards to turn over. Let's do one at a time, please. What is an aspect that group 1 should embrace to support this growth? We have the Fool. Let's put this over here. Fearlessly revealing emotion, helping people laugh at absurdity. Now the Fool also, and as its archetype in general, means having courage. And also, I think what frustrates you in this area, in these first stages, is your immense expectations. And that's what we need to embrace with the Fool. We need to loosen up expectations, right? Just as I was saying right now, you are having a hard time getting out of bed. So don't even think about the journey that comes after that. Take it step by step. We need to break it down into smaller chunks for you. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that, and you do not need to judge yourself for that, right? It's just about making things more manageable, more approachable. And once you get to this point, it only takes this one step of getting over this, and then you're off to the races, right? Once you start practicing more worship around yourself, more ritual around yourself, more belief in yourself, then you're totally gassed up enough to go wherever it is that you need to go. But we need to get past that first step of you not being able to believe in that, of you not being able to see that far. And the thing is that nobody else is going to show you that far, right? If you can't get out of bed in the morning, and it keeps coming up that way, so it may be very literal for some of you. If you can't get out of bed in the morning, the world cannot come to you, right? We have to get to a point where we can at least motivate ourselves enough to get up, And even if the first day you don't make it very far beyond that point, if you get up and just brush your teeth, again, whether this is literal or metaphorically speaking, that's still a little more than you did the day before, and that is something to be proud of, okay? This is not, I think a lot of people in general struggle with the overwhelm of the first steps, and then all you think about is all the other steps that follow, right? All the other steps. And for you right now, the focus is just on the first step, and then believe. Then after that, it's just about you believing and hyping yourself up, because that's going to fuel you in a way that, you know, when somebody is like so hype on energy and you're walking upstairs and you start taking 2 steps at a time, that's what comes after this, taking 2 steps at a time. Right? So you don't have to be focused on all the stuff that comes after this, because for you, the first step is really just to kind of get over this, this annoyance with self and this lack of drive, and to start believing and taking care of yourself. Okay, now I'm gonna get, what do we want to do first? Let's do your blind spot first. We're going to get 2 cards from this deck. One is going to be your blind spot, and then one is going to be surprise support. For group 1, can we get one card for their blind spot? We have the Princess of Wands, and then one card for surprise support or surprise abundance, any kind of surprise. It's kind of like a little treat to, you know, like a little carrot dangling to keep you going. One surprise along the way. We have the Princess of Cups. I'm going to put that down here. Yeah, that kind of works. And look, we have the Fool at the bottom of the deck again. The Fool is full of potential, and the Fool doesn't judge himself for the things that he does not know. The Fool is very wise, and very wise in ways that cannot be categorized. The Fool may not be book smart. In a lot of ways, the Fool is very book smart, though, because the Fool's wisdom is very much applied wisdom. And so the Fool is smart enough to not judge himself for any lack of knowledge. Okay, I just feel like sharing that. All right, so your blind spot is the Princess of Wands, which is interesting because that is technically the Page of Wands, and we are struggling with wands, right? And that is what we're growing towards. Now, the Princess of Wands being in your blind spot indicates to me that there are things that you do feel motivated towards that you probably think are frivolous, that are not worth your time, that are not a good investment of time. That is in your blind spot, because what you have to keep in mind is that you are a whole being. And you cannot just focus on what you need to do. You also need to focus, in order for you to be a well-balanced being, you also need to focus on the things that you want to do. And the Princess of Wands is very much, I mean, look at how she's standing there. It's about balance. So this being in your blind spot, it indicates to me that there are certain desires that you have that you probably cut short, certain desires that you try to ignore, and that's when they become dangerous. It's almost like having this could have to do with your inner teenager for some reason that's coming up. This is almost like when you deny a teenager, like, especially because it says Princess of Wands, right? Both of these are princesses. I'm getting this imagery of denying a teenage girl, like, no, you can't get your ears pierced, you can't get your ears pierced. What is she gonna do? She's gonna rebel, and she's gonna go out of her way, and she's gonna get her nose pierced because she's wants to make a statement, right? And that's kind of what it feels like, where it's like there's something, certain urges that you have where you're like, if I want to be healthy, I have to do it right. I have to focus on only these things, and I have to deny myself my urges. And if you do that, then those urges will come back with a vengeance with this Princess of Wands. So that's in your blind spot. So be aware of that, okay? To not completely suppress any kind of urges that you have. But there is a need for discipline with this Hierophant card, but there is a need for discipline and moderation across the board, not just, especially when we're talking about, let's say, diet, right? You don't want to necessarily completely restrict yourself, but you want to introduce foods that are healthy along with the foods that are satisfying. That's what we're talking about here, okay? Because otherwise, that's when we completely restrict ourselves and deny ourselves our urges. That's when we return to binging and things like that. Again, it's a metaphor, but take it as it resonates. Now, the surprise along the way being the Princess of Cups, I think is super cute, because that is the Page of Cups. And when I think of the Page of Cups, I think of a lot of creativity and a lot of really kind of romantic, and not romantic as in like romantic, how do I say this? More like romanticizing your life, not romantic as in with another person. But what I get here is that the surprise along the way and the surprise support that you will receive will have a lot to do with, once you show up for yourself, you're gonna get really emotionally invested in whatever it is that you're committing yourself to. But it could also mean that you are, once you start doing this and really showing up for yourself, that the surprise support along the way could be your friends and loved ones that are really kind of emotionally supportive of whatever it is that you're growing towards. However, be aware of when that occurs. A lot of times that can come along with, again, expectations. And that's what's kind of held you back in the past, right? This fear around expectations. So know that the weight of expectations that you're overcoming is the worst in the beginning. After that, once you free yourself from that, even expectations or implied expectations by other people around you cannot compare to that weight that you've overcome in the first place. Okay? So the surprise support along the way, I think for you has a lot to do with unlocking certain creativity, and that's really going to drive you once you get to this point. This is beautiful. I'm really excited for you. Okay, now we're going to get one last oracle card. Any last advice or considerations for group 1? Transparent, and I got 2 cards, so we will take 2 cards. Look at that. We have Secret and Transparent. Now, Transparent to me always talks about having compassion for yourself, understanding, like, again, I was talking about the fact that you are a whole being, right? Having compassion for yourself and having compassion for others. But I feel this reading is very much focused around you. So to me, this is speaking about being really honest with yourself so that you don't fall into this trap of your blind spot, of your desires overcoming whenever you restrict them too much. But also Transparent is talking about being really open about your ambitions with yourself, because I feel like in the past, or pretty much in the present, you, especially because helping people laugh at absurdity and hypocrisy, but the shadow attributes of the Fool say using humor to to wound rather than liberate, denial of your emotional truth. And because we have this Ace of Wands in reverse, and I was talking about how this has a lot to do with not having any faith in yourself, not having confidence. And so you may ridicule yourself for certain dreams that you have. So transparent and secret to me is talking about being really honest with yourself about your desires, because again, there's something where you're denying yourself, you're repressing something, and you need to let that out. And it's okay to desire something, it's okay to want something. And just because you desire something, of course, that doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have exactly that thing, but there might be a form of it or something that has a similar vibration that is meant to find you in your life. And that is why that desire is there in the first place, because that desire magnetizes, or like it kind of draws you into a direction that then puts you in a place to be able to receive something that is very similar, right? So even if you feel like, oh, I have this desire, but it's unrealistic and I don't have the confidence or the faith that I'm going to be able to achieve that, specifically because earlier I was talking about, you know, you're not going to just get on a stage and everybody's going to applaud you the first time you show up. This could have to do with some kind of desire around, I want to be an actor, I want to be a performer, and this desire is so strong, but you're having like this fantasy of it that makes you think, I'm not good enough for it, where in reality it's just that you have to practice and you have to really put in a lot of time and invest a lot of energy into practicing and showing up so that you can be in a space to cultivate the kind of experiences that would make you good at that, and that would put you in the realm, in the arena of having the kind of experiences that you desire, right? But right now it's kind of like this idea of like, oh, I would love to win an Oscar one day, but I'm not an Oscar worthy actor, so it's never going to happen. And it's like, why are we setting the expectations so high? Let's lower the expectations a little bit, but be transparent. So instead of, you know, ridiculing yourself for having these desires that seem outlandish to you from the viewpoint that you're at right now, be transparent with yourself about those desires, because they are there for a reason. Okay? And that's why we have transparent and secret. Ooh, I believe in you. All it takes for you to get to this point where you can actually start this journey is for you to believe in yourself. Okay? And that takes active engagement on a regular basis. It's not just one day you say, okay, I'm believing in myself today. Like, no, you have to show up every day for that desire that you have and for yourself. And you have to feed that just like a plant. Just like a plant, you have to take care of it every day, right? All right, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. And other than that, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care. Hi, Group 2. This is your reading if you chose these beautiful greens. I don't think I showed you the back of this leaf. Look at that. Surprise. I mean, if you know this plant, then it's probably not a surprise, but okay, let's get into your reading. We are taking a look at what are you growing towards. And I'm very excited because I just finished Group 1, and I really like the structure of this reading, so I'm excited to see what comes out for you guys. Okay, so this is what we're doing. We're going to get one card on where you're at currently. We're going to get one card, what you're growing towards, and then we're going to get 3 cards that kind of go like stairs, like a ladder. So we're going to see how you're going to grow towards that. So for Group 2, where are they currently? Oh, okay. Okay. We have the Ace of Wands. I laugh because group one had the Ace of Wands in the same position but in reverse, and it kind of felt like the beginning, like almost the steps before a actual like journey. So I wonder if this is going to be a continuation of that. That would be so cool. Let's see. Keeping my mind open though, what are group two growing towards? Interesting. We have the Hermit. So immediately I'm getting that there's some kind of journey towards self-sufficiency. The Eight of Wands wanted to come out with the Hermit. Let's see how we're getting there. We have the Hierophant. This does feel kind of like a little continuation because we had the Hierophant in last reading as well. The High Priestess. Oh my God, this is a very spiritual group. Are you kidding me? I already felt it with the Hermit, but with the Hierophant and the High Priestess. Okay, let's get one more. And the Seven of Wands. Wow. What are you growing towards? I think you are growing towards, yeah, look at, we have the Six of Wands at the bottom of the deck. I think you are growing towards a better understanding of the world around you and how it makes sense in terms of what you believe in. I think there's an eagerness. Where you're at right now, it feels like there's this new beginning of anything is possible. You might be at the beginning of a spiritual awakening, and that doesn't have to mean it's your first. It could be just a deepening. But what I am seeing here is that this is becoming, your spirituality is becoming more self-sufficient. And I love that because I think that is so, so important when it comes to your spirituality and when it comes to spiritual awakenings in general. Because when we are, and I do want to keep it somewhat broad because it doesn't have to be just spirituality. This can have to do with any topic that is really drawing you in, that has captured your attention, anything, right? Any interest that you have, any motivation that you feel, an art form, a form of performance, a literary style. Like it's anything that is just kind of niche that you've discovered recently where you're like, oh, I'm really into this. This is really interesting to me. It could also be career, right? That you found some kind of job or some kind of career path where you're like, oh, this is really interesting to me. And when we discover something, we rely on gathering information from sources of authority, right? And what we do is we have to connect with people that we trust, and that's not easy to do. When you come from a place of, oh, this is really interesting to me, I know nothing about it, you start consuming everything that you can find, especially if you have strong mercurial energy. You start consuming information just from whatever source that you encounter. Now, it's important to recognize that not all sources are valid and not all sources operate with integrity, meaning when you first are drawn into a subject or into a field of interest, you might subject yourself to certain authorities that actually do not supply the right kind of information, right? Now that may happen for a reason. because it eventually triggers your own intuition to tell you, I don't think that's right. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't sound right. That doesn't look right. And then that's when you start challenging those authorities. And when you start challenging those authorities, that's when you start finding your own guidance. And that's when you become an authority yourself. That was so beautiful. I want you to know I have said this before in readings. There are times in tarot readings that I read the cards, and there are times that I channel. And there are times where both happens at the same time, but it's not always the case. And that was channeling. I wasn't even looking at the cards. I was just looking out the window because this is such a clear message to me. And it's so important and it's so beautiful, and I'm really kind of in awe of it because I'm like, everybody needs to hear this. It doesn't matter what field of interest this pertains to, whether it is about spirituality, whether it is about politics, whether it is about real estate, whether it is about pharmaceuticals. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what this is about, because what's important here is that you are drawn towards something. And then you adhere to the system in place that you encounter. And then you recognize your own wisdom within yourself telling you where that authority is overstepping. And then from that place, you start to fight, you start to argue things, you start to recognize, no, that does not feel like it makes sense. And that's when you veer off the path and follow your own intuition, as you should. And I apologize, I don't know what that noise is in the back. If you can hear it, there's somebody beating something up outside, out of nowhere. That's okay, we can work around that. This is such a straightforward message. That was beautiful. Let's see. So where you're at right now is a strong excitement and desire to master something, and where you're growing towards is to master it in a way that is perhaps a little more tempered. Like there's less of this is giving me student, like you are ready to commit yourself as a student to something, and then you realize that whatever it is that you're committing yourself to, that the knowledge of it is much larger than the authority that you're trying to subject yourself to, right? So, for example, if you develop an interest in a certain career path, and then you recognize that there are masters and forms or figureheads of authority within that career path, where it's like, these are the people that you need to listen to, you need to buy a course from them, you need to learn from the best, you need to learn from them in order to know what you're doing in this industry. And you do that, you do subject yourself to it, because I do find that it is necessary to kind of learn within confinements, so then you can recognize how to overcome those confinements. So there is something here where you subject yourself. That's kind of the first step. You subject yourself to some sort of authority, but then that leads you immediately to recognize your own authority and your own wisdom with the High Priestess right here. And that connecting to your own authority allows you to be able to really combat the things that you feel are not done right. So the way that I can explain this in a very 3D way is, imagine you are an intern at an ad agency, and you have to do everything their way. And it's like an ad agency that does social media marketing, and you're an intern, and so because you're an intern, they treat you like an intern, and it's like you don't know anything yet. You're very excited to be there, so you're happy to submit yourself to whatever it is that, you know, they put you through the ringer, and you're happy to be there and show up and do what you need to do, because you understand that there's a hierarchy to the industry, right? But then as you grow and learn under the confinements of that company, you recognize that there are certain things that are happening that they are not as in touch as they think they are, because you are young and you're, you know, you're very social media literate, and the people that are in charge seem very old and not in touch. And so you recognize that you have something that they don't have, and that can set you apart. And so you recognize your value within that industry, even if you are not a subject to that authority, right? Even you can recognize that you have something that is really going to help you thrive in the market, and then that allows you to really rely on yourself and your own wisdom. All right, we are going to get one card. This is going to be an archetype card on what Spirit wants you to embrace, an aspect that Spirit wants you to embrace to help you grow towards this, to help you support this growth. What is an aspect Group 2 should embrace in this process? We have gossip. It fell to the floor. And for a second, we have student at the bottom of the deck. I just want to highlight that because I do feel like that's kind of where we're at when you're learning something new. But interesting with gossip, something to embrace. It says, awakens consideration for the feelings of others, honoring trust. The shadow attributes thrives on the power of passing on private or secret information, betraying confidences. So something to embrace with gossip, I think, is the idea of taking in all the information that you receive. Even if, you know, this card, by telling you to embrace this archetype, we're not talking about you, we're not talking about you weaponizing the information that you receive, but you are supposed to be open to all the information that you are receiving. So whether that is on a spiritual level, right? So with this Hierophant card, like I said, there's some kind of forms of authority that you are, as you grow more confident in your own knowledge and in your own abilities, you're going to outgrow that structure. Now, your job is not going to be to judge that structure or to weaponize your knowledge against that structure, because that structure serves its purpose. Now, if it is a structure that has no moral integrity and takes advantage of people, of course, that is something, you know, if you find it within your means to kind of fight against that, sure, do that. But this is not saying that you have to take on the world. This is more so saying that that structure serves its purpose. The other thing is too that this is not a singular structure. Something that I'm seeing is when I think about all of just the social media landscape in general, and how, you know, videos are very short nowadays. There's not a lot of room for nuance. So when we're talking about the spiritual community, or just, again, this is about any community that you are interested in. Anything that you've started learning online, and the more you learn, you recognize that people you first started listening to, the accounts that you first started following, are actually not telling people the whole truth. They're not portraying the whole picture. And it is not your job to kind of go back and fight a battle with them, but for you to become an authority on your own that can show up as a beacon of integrity in that space. And so this gossip card says that you are meant to take in as much information. So this has a lot to do with whatever it is that you're learning. Is do not discriminate on what information you think is right or wrong. It's about keeping a very open ear and taking in all kinds of informations, being open to all kinds of information, because a lot of times a different perspective is not necessarily wrong. It's just coming from a completely different angle that you have not had the privilege of being able to recognize, because, you know, we are all experiencing the world inherently biased and inherently subjective, sorry. And so there are reasons for different perspectives. And so this gossip card, for some reason, it does feel like you are supposed to take in as much of information that relates to what it is that you're growing towards, and just take it all in. You are allowed to judge people on your own, in your mind, for sure, because that judgment also kind of helps you. You know, the idea of gossip in general, gossip is something that publicly is very frowned upon, but we all do it. We all gossip. And why do we all gossip? There are actually evolutionary reasons for gossip. And they have to do with the fact that gossip is a way that we keep each other in check. It is a way for us to share values through judgment. And that was really important when you think about times in which we all lived in smaller villages. Gossip, which, you know, traveled quickly, made sure that people were not just pretending to adhere to their faith, but also living by their faith, because otherwise the gossip would travel and people would judge. And once people judge, you know, everybody executes their judgments in different ways, and it becomes almost unlivable. Now, that of course can have very toxic natures, but the reason that we gossip has to do with building trust with one another and making sure we're on the same page of like, hey, these are my values, so what that person did is wrong, right? Making sure that this other person we're connecting to says, yeah, that is wrong, you're right. And so it can help you to kind of vent with a friend and be like, wait, I feel like this doesn't feel right, and your friend might help you by supporting that, and that can help you to break away from some kind of structure that is actually limiting you. Okay, I hope that makes sense. I know that was a very, very long tangent right there. Okay, we are going to get one card now from this deck. This is going to be your blind spot during this growth period. This is an incredible period, by the way, and I would love to know if you could leave me a comment. I would love to know what it is that has piqued your interest, because I do feel like I see you becoming an authority figure in it, right? So that could be, especially because these cards are very spiritual, that could be that you are very interested in tarot, and it's piqued your interest, and you've started watching readers, and you've started engaging with the medium, and the more that you engage, the more you recognize, wait a minute, that's not how I would do it. That's how I became an online reader. I used to read for myself and friends, and then I watched so many other readers, and I would get frustrated. So now I'm here, and now I'm doing this, and I'm becoming my own authority figure. So I recognize this path, and I think more people need to do it, because that's not to say that other readers are bad, but there are a million ways to do things, right? And so if you see something where you're like, I don't agree with the way that this person is portraying that, then you need to step up and become your own authority figure to be a beacon of authority that other people that operate on your same frequency can connect with. And again, this doesn't have to be just spiritual. This can have to do with really anything that is grabbing your interest at this time. It is something that is grabbing your interest for a reason, because you are supposed to really, really connect with something that has a lot to do with innate knowledge for you. You're really supposed to reconnect with some form of authority that you have in this field. Okay, let's get a blind spot for you when it comes to this growth. We have the Princess of Swords. I love this because this connects to what I just said. I think this has a lot to do with you uncovering knowledge that you're not even aware of, that you already have. The Princess of Swords is the Page of Swords. You already, like, your blind spot is that you actually already know more than you think you do. I love that. Now let's get, this card is going to be surprise support that you receive throughout this growth. We have the Five of Wands coming out directly under the Seven of Wands. Okay, I also like this, but I don't think you're going to like it, because the thing is that this is surprise support. And it's the Five of Wands, which is conflict, coming out under the Seven of Wands, which feels like you having to battle out with other authority figures or with other ideologies, with other rules and regulations. Red tape is what I'm getting with this specifically as well. You having to battle just kind of like these set mindsets. Like there's something where it's almost like a garden that no one's been taking care of, and you're like having to get in there and get rid of all the weeds. And the surprise support within this, I love that these kind of feel flipped, because this is your blind spot and this is the support that you're not aware of. And your blind spot is that you're actually more skilled than you recognize. And your surprise support is going to be that you are going to be thrown into situations that will challenge you to stand up for what you believe in. These situations will come through some kind of conflict, through some kind of argument, through some kind of you having to defend why it is that you believe what you believe. And that in itself, that act of having to defend, helps you refine and helps you recognize, oh, I'm actually really good at this. And no, I don't have to study under anyone. I have to study under myself, because when I am challenged, I recognize that I'm actually really good at drawing out knowledge. That's the thing. You have a lot of innate knowledge, and that knowledge is being sparked by an interest, and then it's being kind of like lured out through you dedicating yourself to someone who knows more than you do at that time. But then the more you expose yourself to whatever this is, the more you recognize that you have an incredible amount of wisdom within you, and you're able to make sense of things. And again, this can have to do with whatever it is that is drawing your desire right now. So this could also have to do, something that I'm getting is that somebody here is an artist, and you know, you have to subject yourself to a certain structure first to learn the basics, to learn composition. But once you got that down, then it's like, okay, now I'm tapping into my intuition and I'm following, and once you know the rules, you understand how to break the rules to follow your own creative wisdom. And the part where you break the rules, where you challenge, that's actually where your genius comes through. This is so, I cannot even explain to you how delicious this is. This reading is amazing. This is such a like exquisite, and notice all the blues here. There's a lot of mercurial energy. You are so intelligent. You are so clever and smart, and you are so witty, so witty. And you are witty in the way that you challenge the status quo. And it's within that challenge that your wit and your intelligence and your wisdom gets to shine. And you would not be able to get there if you weren't challenged, if you weren't restricted by those authorities first. So this is a beautiful, honestly, it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. So again, the surprise support actually comes in form of people or situations challenging you. And that can be really exhausting, right? But in a certain way, this also indicates to me, especially with gossip, this also indicates to me that you should not surround yourself with people that only blindly support you. You should surround yourself with people that challenge your ideas, specifically that challenge you to think deeper, to think wider, to think bigger. There's nothing like a good challenging companion, to be quite honest. And with this Princess of Swords in your blind spot, again, there's a lot. The blind spot for you is that, okay, I have a little bit more coming through for this now. Something to be aware of and something to be careful of. See, it got me too. It got me. It totally got me. The blind spot got me too, because I'm all up in your energy here, right? And the blind spot is an energy that we need to be careful of. And I kind of neglected that this is the Princess of Swords and not the Knight of Swords or the King of Swords. And so this being in your blind spot does indicate that there is a danger to think. See, this is what's so interesting about this. You know more than you think you know. You have an incredibly deep well of intuitive wisdom. So you do know more than you think you know. But because you are able to tap into that, you will find yourself in situations where you think you know much more than you think you know. Or you think you know much more than you are able to handle at the time. And what I mean by that is that you may end up challenging authorities in ways where it's like you have not yet grasped the full picture. But that's also a learning opportunity, because again, you get a lot of support, you get a lot of growth out of conflict. This Princess of Swords is very much kind of like a very witty energy, but that almost is driven by a certain ignorance. But not ignorance as in like deliberately ignorant, but more so like it's this energy of, oh, I'm clever, I can figure it out, so I don't have to know, or I don't have to do things the way that you do them. So you also want to make sure that, again, with this gossip card as well, again, take in all of the information, but keep your judgments to yourself, because I think that could be your blind spot. I think that could be your downfall if we become too judgmental when you're still from a place where your perspective is somewhat limited. Right? So you want to allow yourself to grow into this authority figure without cutting people. Like, I don't know, I'm getting this imagery of somebody going through a jungle and just cutting, like with a machete, cutting a way through a jungle. And then once you're through the jungle, you look back and you realize you actually needed whatever it is that you cut down was actually a source of some of some shape or form. I'm not quite sure that Mercury retrograde, guys. That metaphor isn't quite coming together for me right now, but there is something around like cutting something off just because you haven't recognized the full picture yet. You don't want to go into anything with like blind confidence, but you do know more than you think you know. That's why this is a very delicate balance, because it's like you do have an incredible, it's almost like the age-old story of like the boy child that is born with incredible gifts, but because of that thinks ignorantly that he doesn't need to be taught by anyone else. And I don't think that that's necessarily your path, but I think that's the danger of the blind spot. And I'm trying to think of a story where that happens now, and I can't even, it's such a regular like archetype, and now I can't even think of any. My brain just won't let me pick anything out. I keep seeing Mickey Mouse in Fantasia, where he just pretends, you know. But it's just that age-old storyline of somebody being impatient and being like, I don't want to have to sit through all of these lessons. I'll just do, like, I know I'm gifted, I'll just do it my way. But I don't see that, because I do see you going through the lessons and the structure and then outgrowing it, but that's what's in your blind spot, meaning there is a certain level of ignorance that you kind of want to avoid when it comes to, because you will be learning a lot by defying certain authorities. You just want to make sure that while you defy them, okay, now I think I can pull it together. I think it's important that while it is part of your growth to defy certain authorities, but I think it is important that while you defy them, you don't center yourself. That it is about the integrity of the craft, of the art, of the wisdom, of the knowledge, whatever it is. And it isn't so much about, I know better, I know this, I can tell you, I have the answers. That's not what it's about. It's about you centering whatever the craft or spirit or whatever it is, centering the integrity of whichever field that you are growing towards. Okay? Ooh, I hope you're still with me, because I know that was a tangent. This was a second tangent for you. Okay, we just got one more card though. We're gonna get one last oracle card. Any last advice or considerations for group 2? This was an incredible reading. You are well on your way to becoming an authority figure in something. And that doesn't mean it's gonna happen overnight, but you are well on your way. And it is something that is calling you for good reason, because you have a lot of innate knowledge and wisdom around this topic, but you do have to go through the gauntlet, is what I'm hearing. You have to go through this rigmarole of having to adhere to some kind of structure so that you then properly know how to challenge that structure. And through you challenging that structure is where you really shine and get to become that beacon of authority that centers integrity within whichever field this is. Now we're going to get one last oracle card. And the people outside are getting their leaf blowers going, which is lovely. One last oracle card for group 2. Any last considerations? We have nourish and sweetness at the bottom of the deck. We will take that. Nourish and sweetness. I also want to point out At the bottom of this deck, we had the Lovers, and at the bottom of this deck, we now have the Lovers as well. So this is something that is really aligned with you. The Lovers isn't always about another person. This is about something that is truly aligned with you. You are meant to be on this path, which goes very well with this Hermit card. Now, Nourish and Sweetness. I'm glad we are at the end of this reading because that leaf blower is going to get on my nerves. We have Nourish and Sweetness. So last considerations for you, group 2, is to really kind of make sure that you don't take this too serious. I mean, it is very serious. Again, with gossip, you're supposed to take in a lot of information and you're supposed to do it very critically. And we got a lot of mercurial energy. You're very witty, you're very smart. This is a very critical approach to a topic. You are you're very set on learning and understanding the entirety of something, right? In the midst of that, remember to have fun. Remember to enjoy. There's such a sweetness in learning, right? In being a student, and also nourish. And I know this is a very literal picture of nourishing a child that is breastfeeding. Within that, it is really about taking what you can from the sources that are available to you and taking whatever nourishments and nutrients that you can get from that. And you are meant to outgrow that, right? You're not going to breastfeed forever, right? You are meant to take what you need when you are small, right? When you're just starting out learning about something, take what you can from the sources available to you, but then you are ready to outgrow them and face a lot of times when within childhood there are these phases where kids will throw tantrums, and not just as toddlers but also as teenagers, because it becomes important to rebel against your parents because you have to establish yourself as a singular entity. You have to establish yourself as the authority figure in your own life. And that's what we're seeing here. But then while you can do so with sweetness, right? You still want to appreciate your parents for everything that they've given to you, even if you don't agree with them on how to live your life, right? So whether this is with parents, any kind of authority figure, an old job, a college, or some kind of mentor, anything like that, right? You are allowed to outgrow people. You are allowed to outgrow authority figures, but don't disrespect them. You can challenge them, but don't disrespect them. Be aware of how you challenge, okay? All right, I'm gonna leave it there. This was a beautiful reading. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it made sense. Let me know in the comments. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. Everything is linked below. And other than that, I hope I get to read for you again sometime. Sorry about the noise at the end, but that is out of my control. I hope I get to read for you again sometime without leaf blowers in the back. Until then, take care. Hi group 3, this is your reading. If you chose the antique fuchsia, I remembered. These lovely purples along with this lovely satiny, gorgeous leaf. We're going to set that off to the side and we're going to get right into your reading. So we're taking a look at what you are growing towards. So in order to do that, we are going to get one card on where you're at currently, one card what you're growing towards, 3 cards on how you're going to get there, and then a couple more after that. But let's take it one step at a time. So for group 3, let's talk about it. Where are they at currently? The Hanged Man, okay. And then where are you headed? What are you growing towards? The Star. I love that. That's beautiful. So right now you might be finding your moment. Maybe you are finding your moment. Maybe you're finding yourself in a moment of suspense, of stillness, of prolonged exposure is what I'm hearing. Prolonged exposure to something. Exposure is an interesting word choice because it's immediately making me think of photography and how prolonged exposure creates more detail. And that's also the idea behind the hanged man, because the hanged man is hanging in order to achieve a greater awareness of his surroundings. So there's something here about prolonged exposure in order to achieve more detail. And then where you're growing towards, the star card, to me, of course, is first of all ultimate healing. So there might be prolonged exposure to a really uncomfortable situation that you're currently finding yourself in. And what you're growing towards is healing, equilibrium. But let's see what else comes out. How are we getting there? We have the Magician. Love that. We have the Temperance card. Love that. You're taking control. One more. Are you kidding me? This is beautiful. This is incredible. We have the Sun card, and I love how the Sun card came out directly under the sphere of, this is, by the way, a snake agate. Come on. Here we go. I love that that came out directly underneath. At the bottom of the deck, we have the Eight of Wands, but we're going to set that aside. Are you kidding me? These cards are so powerful. First of all major arcana. All major arcana. That is incredible. We're going from the Hanged Man to the Star through recognizing your capabilities and your abilities to overcome any situation and to bring healing and positive change and positive awareness back into your life. This is a process. You are growing towards freedom from a situation that you probably have felt very suffocated by, very limited by. And you are regaining your power and you are regaining your autonomy. This is incredible. Let's talk about the how. Because on one hand, I was just thinking, like, that's incredible. How are you doing this? And then I realized, like, oh, right, this is how. But it just seems so general, and it's like, I know that this is probably a lot of hard work. And I do want to remind you that what you are growing towards, this isn't something that's going to happen overnight, right? Growth in general takes time. It takes time, it takes dedication, it takes effort. And this is what we're seeing here. Effort, 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 leading to healing. And there's a lot of work that goes into making something look effortless, because that's what's happening here, right? It's if we didn't see these cards in the middle, we're going from the Hanged Man to the Star. That is like, I mean, that seems like it would be effortless, right? But it takes a lot of effort to make something look effortless. And what we have here, the combination of energies that you employ to make this look effortless, is actually an incredible amount of control, an incredible amount of self-control and of application, like understanding how to apply yourself. But in the meantime, that takes a lot of patience and a lot of compassion, because again, there's some kind of form of prolonged exposure. Now imagine you have a gash on your arm, an open flesh wound. That is not going to heal overnight just because you treat it and you clean it, you treat it, you bandage it. You can't check the next morning. Is it done? Is it gone? You know, not unless you have super healing powers. But over time, this is where you're getting. So I want to specifically point out to anyone who is finding themselves right now mentally and emotionally stuck, if you feel like there's something that has hurt you, if you feel like there's something that has caused you immense heartache and confusion and struggle, and if you feel like you cannot see the light, and will I ever not have to face this pain, you are growing towards healing. And the thing is that this isn't something that is handed to you. It is something that you call in. It is something that you make happen. It is something that you create. Your healing, your equilibrium is something that you create. And that's amazing, because who else to better create your peace of mind? This is a peace of mind. And this is coming to you in a vision. In this place that you feel stuck right now, you have this vision, you have to focus, right? In the traditional tarot deck, the Hanged Man has this halo around his head, because there's this enlightenment that comes through the upside down position. Through the blood rushing through to the head. There is this halo that is very much equal to the sun, because it is about enlightenment and awareness around the mind, and understanding that even when you are confined physically, that your mind is free. And that is what kind of sets this in motion. You know what I really, really love about today's reading is that I feel like they've all built on each other. So if you happen to have chosen to spend your very, very valuable time watching all three readings, thank you. And you are on an incredible journey. But in any case, this starts with the recognition of, I may not be able to change my circumstance, but I'm able to change my perspective. And as you do that, you take stock of, what do I have available? What resources do I have available to me? And how can I use them to help balance myself? Because that's ultimately here with the Hanged Man in this current energy. You feel like you've lost grip, you've lost the ground underneath your feet, right? Everything is turned upside down. You may have lost, quite literally, you may have lost people, you may have lost connections, you may have lost a job, you may have lost things that were very grounding to you. And you're in this moment of suspense, and it feels like, why isn't anything changing? Because what needs to change is your perspective. And once your perspective, and it's not even that it needs to change, it just needs to broaden, it needs to open up. And once that opens up, you take stock of the things, the abilities that you have at your disposal, and how you can use those to ground yourself even in moments that are very turbulent, that are very chaotic. And that unlocks this superpower of being able to ground yourself despite external circumstance. And then we have the Sun card, which then is that enlightenment of like, wow, I can really determine how I feel. And if I can determine how I feel, then I can affect the pain and the wounds that I have. and I can treat them in a way where I create space around them that helps me balance and helps me ground so that I can heal. So what you're growing towards, it feels like prioritizing your sanity is kind of coming through right now, but it's about you prioritizing your well-being and your peace of mind, which also means that we are probably stepping away from trying to cling on to toxic relationships, whether that is a toxic friendship, a toxic work environment. This is something where we are prioritizing our peace of mind over trying to maintain things that make us feel imbalanced. That's incredible. Let's get an archetype card. So this card is going to be an aspect that Spirit wants you to embrace, so we can support this growth. Give us an aspect to embrace to support this growth. Oh, hello. Recognizing the divinity within yourself. Love that. We have God. Benevolence and compassion. Recognizing the eternal force within yourself and others. You know what I really like about that is the idea of this is all self-motivated. I told you, you are regaining your control, you are regaining autonomy. This is rejecting the idea that somebody else is going to come in and provide healing for you. You are taking control of your healing. And the energy that Spirit wants you to embrace is God, because it is the recognition that you are deserving of putting yourself first, not out of selfishness, but out of your divine right to take care of yourself. And you are deserving of healing because you are a divine being. Like there's no way that God would ever hesitate to put all of their time into healing themselves, right? And I do feel like this is for someone out there, this is very literal. Like this may have to do with you being in some kind of suspense from work because of some health condition. And just because you have managed pain doesn't mean that you are healed from it. Oh boy, that hits. Just because you have learned to live with pain, just because you have learned to manage the pain, just because you have learned to suppress symptoms of the pain, does not mean that you have healed it. It means that you are ignoring it. And there is somebody here for sure that is being forced to take some kind of extended leave of work, of something, because it is necessary for you to truly heal yourself. And only once you have established that balance within yourself again, are you able to consider becoming an active participant of society again. And I don't know why society came out in that way, but that's kind of what it feels like. Because you don't want to, I don't know, there's just something about feeling some sort of obligation of like, oh, people depend on me, or I need to be available. And it's like, okay, but if you just suppress the pain, you're not actually dependable, because you become corroded. You become like this hollow version of yourself, and at some point that will crumble. So you're not actually dependable. So the more responsible thing is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, right? So what you're growing towards is actual healing versus treating symptoms. Because especially with this Hanged Man, it is the enduring of prolonged exposure to something. And especially with the Magician, it could have to do with the Magician and Temperance. Again, I feel like for some of you, this is very literal in terms of the healing process has to do with physical pain that you are healing, because with the Magician and the Temperance card, those are huge indicators of medical assistance and medical testing. And then with the Sun, it's like finding a certain solution, finding a cure of some sort. So if that is the case, now please keep in mind that this is just a tarot reading and it is just a general tarot reading. I'm not here to make any kind of medical statements or any kind of diagnoses, but I do see with this God card that there is a strong reminder to embrace the incredible healing power that we have within the human body in general. And that is whether this is physical or mental or emotional. Because your physical body, your vessel, needs to, not just needs to, but deserves to be taken care of so that it can perform in a way to, when we properly take care of our physical vessel, it heals itself in many ways. And I know that's, I don't want to sound ableist, because I know that there are many ways in which our bodies can suffer from complications and from diseases that stop that process. And that is a very real reality, and you cannot just manifest or wish that away. There are very real circumstances that we have to deal with. But there is something here where there is a way to heal something and not just manage something. And so if you have been told that something that you're dealing with is something that you just have to get used to, then this is a reminder to do your own research. This is a reminder to explore other options. And that's not telling you to completely dismiss any kind of information that you've received, but to make sure that you're getting a full picture, right? That you're not just treating an inflamed area, but that you are taking into account your entire physical vessel. Somebody needs to hear that, okay? But going back to keeping it a little bit more general, overall, this has to do with taking care of your body so that you can give it the best possible chances to help you overcome whatever emotional or mental issues that you are facing at this time. Taking advantage of all of the resources available to you so that you can then use those resources and tools to help you rebalance, so you can then recognize the beauty, see the light again. And that, the combination of that, of taking action, focusing on balance, and focusing on the light, really kind of just puts you in a position to feel peace of mind again, to feel at ease again. Because to be honest, between the Hanged Man and the Star, it's not like the Star card has a lot of more movement. They're both cards of incredible awareness. But the Star card is such an energy of peace of mind, of equilibrium. Versus the Hanged Man is an energy of seeking. And by the time that we get to the Star card, it's like we have found and we can settle. And this was the road to finding it. All right, let's get some tarot cards. So we're going to get one card. This first one is going to be, what is your blind spot through this process? Just something to be aware of as you grow towards this healing. I also want to say that specifically, if you are healing from emotional damage that was caused by love of any form, that this is reminding you of your power and your divine right to heal, right? Again, this is so much about taking back control and taking back your autonomy, because you are deserving, you are divine, and someone else's choices that have led to you feeling rejected do not define your worth. So this is also a journey of coming back to your peace of mind and recognizing your worth with the star, right? The recognizing your unique worth. Give me one card for group 3. What is their blind spot through this growing process? What is their blind spot? We have the Queen of Swords. And then give me one card. This is going to be surprise support that you receive along this growth. Surprise support. You have the Devil. Interesting. Okay, let's take a look at this Queen of Swords first. So this is your blind spot. This journey, what you're growing towards, has a lot to do with recentering yourself, right? Recentering your peace of mind. And in order to prioritize your peace of mind, you are going to have to enforce some boundaries. And you're going to, again, we were talking about regaining autonomy and control. So that goes hand in hand with enforcing boundaries, and goes hand in hand with being stricter on what and who is allowed in, and what energy you expand, or who and what you invest into. Now, the blind spot, being the Queen of Swords, could indicate that there is, along that process, you may have a tendency to be a little bit reactionary, because when we regain control and autonomy, it makes us realize in retrospect how much we had allowed, how much we had given up of our control in the past. And that can feel like a rubber band snapping back, and that can sting. And that sting is something that you're going to want to transmute. And so the Queen of Swords being in your blind spot could indicate that you may be a bit, during this growth process, you might be a little bit harsher and a little bit more critical than other people are used to you being towards them. And at the same time, we have the Queen of Swords, not the King of Swords. So it's necessary for you to recognize that that is a possibility, but it's also necessary for you to recognize that that is a necessity, right? So there's a balance that has to happen within that, where it's like, first of all, because it's in your blind spot, it's like there may be ways in which you enact certain boundaries in a little bit of a harsher way than it comes across a little bit harsher than you meant it. So that's just something that you might not recognize as it happens. The other thing I'm also getting with this Queen of Swords, specifically for those where this applies in a physical way, where this is a healing on a physical level, is that you are not to underestimate or ignore your feminine intuition. Now, it doesn't matter what gender you identify with. We all have masculine and feminine energy, and our feminine energy is typically more closely connected to our intuition. And there's some kind of knowledge that your feminine intuition has about what is going on here, that if you ignore it, you prolong this process of healing. And actually that goes for both, for whether this is a physical healing or a mental, emotional healing. There's certain intuitive hits that you're getting that you may have a tendency to kind of outsource certain knowledge or testing or judgments. Like you may not trust your own judgment in some way, and so you outsource that, whether that is through medical assistance or like a doctor, or whether that is through like a therapist, where you don't trust your own judgment as much as you trust others, and you get these hits and you always need them to be confirmed, otherwise you don't believe them. That's in your blind spot, meaning that there's some knowledge there that is definitely worth exploring, even if the people that you bring it towards try to dismiss it. Now, what's really interesting is that the surprise support is the Devil card. I'm telling you, this is a journey of you centering your own peace of mind, right? So the fact that we have the Devil card as a surprise support, I think that indicates that when you are in this energy of feeling like, oh, that's bad, I shouldn't do that, I feel bad for doing that, I think that's actually when you are making progress. I mean, look at these steps even going up. Oh, now I'm hearing that Doja Cat song, Paint the Town Red. Is she a devil? Yeah, there's something about, I think there's a good chance that you have, especially with this Hangman, sorry, I'm trying to get this back into focus right now. Come on. There we go. Especially with this Hanged Man's card here, because there's some kind of prolonged exposure, it's very possible that there's some kind of emotional situation in which you have been very passive in. And the way to get to a place of healing when it comes to that situation is to release that passivity. But because you had that proclivity to be more passive in this situation, any kind of demands that you make may feel to you like you're being really selfish. Like you're again with this Queen of Swords, right? Where like you're being really harsh, but it's almost like there's a certain harshness that is going to be very necessary, because what you define as selfish, I think other people would define as, what? You just spoke your mind. Like you just said how you're feeling. Like that's not that selfish. And so for some reason, I feel like this Devil card is almost like we have to keep in mind that everybody has like a different spectrum of experience. And I think for you, this Devil card is like, you've probably been told that if you focus too much on yourself, and this comes from deep conditioning, if you focus too much on yourself, that's selfish. If you focus too much on your own well-being, that's selfish. Like, I think you're a very giving and benevolent, right? With this God card here too, very giving and benevolent person. And so it feels like it's asking a lot of you to stand up for yourself. And that's going to be very necessary in order for you to get to this point of healing, because whatever situation it is that caused you emotional damage and caused you this this prolonged moment of suspense, it's something that can only be overcome through immense movement. And so what I'm thinking of is and I'm going to butcher this, but like the laws of movement are, you know, an object in motion stays in motion, but an object that is not in motion takes greater force in order to get it into motion, right? And so it takes greater force in order for us to bring this situation into balance so that you can heal. So this situation demands for you to really kind of enact some kind of level of selfishness because it's necessary. Now, the other thing that also is coming through with this Devil card, because the Devil card is a Capricorn card, and it's a card of structure and attachment. So when it comes to any kind of structure around enjoyment, especially with the Sun card, I'm trying to refine what's coming through right now, because there is this arc of trying a bunch of different things, finding something that brings you balance, and then focusing a lot of your attention on that, and then that bringing you peace of mind. When you focus a lot of your attention on that, it might be something that, again, somebody makes you feel selfish for, or somebody tells you that is an unhealthy attachment, and it could have to do with reconnecting with your inner child, reconnecting with a desire that was squashed when you were very young, and that could also have to do with sexual healing. Because this, again, if this is some kind of emotional or mental situation that you are trying to heal from, you might be able to heal from it by regaining autonomy over your own experience and over your own body, and you might be able to do so through sexual exploration. That sounds really empowering. So it could have to do, right, with this idea, especially with the Hanged Man, the idea of passivity here, where maybe you were somewhat mentally attached to some situation or some particular person, and you're growing towards becoming more autonomous again and becoming your own self again. And in order to do so, you really kind of have to remind yourself of what you're capable of, and again, finding ways to kind of ground yourself, which also means, you know, being able to calm yourself, being able to regulate your own needs and desires, and then to have fun again, and have fun in a sexual way that is not attached to whatever the situation was, right? Because if this situation was sexually unhealthy, then that can really remove you from your body, and that can really remove you from the joy of sex. So there's something here where the surprise support has to do with really enjoying something again for the benefit of your own healing. All right, so we're going to get one last oracle card, and this card is going to be just any last advice or considerations for group 3 on this beautiful journey to healing. I just shuffled these, and I just have to point out that adorn is at the bottom of the deck. So this also, I just have to say it because it immediately came to mind. So this could have to do, in terms of like the sexual healing, I'm hearing quite literally sexual healing, could have to do with you really centering yourself in your sexuality, and even, you know, just finding things that work for just you. It doesn't have to be about sexual connection with another person. It can just be between you and your own divinity. There's a lot of power in self-pleasure. We are all adults here, I'm hoping. Okay, let's get one last oracle card for group 3. Not only is there a lot of power, but there's also a lot of healing energy in self-pleasure and the climax of self-pleasure. There's a lot of science to back that up. Okay, one last oracle card for group 3. Any last considerations or advice for group 3? No? That's... Okay, we got 2 cards. At the bottom of the deck we have tend. Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, my love. And look at, we have the sun again. This is beautiful. This is about bringing attention to yourself. Quite literally. In a physical way, in a mental way, in all the ways. You deserve it. And then we have invocation, which to me always speaks about, again, bringing attention to something. Now I can't remember if it was in this group or if it was in another group where I was talking about affirmations. I think it was another group, but still this could have to do with, you know, bringing attention towards, specific attention towards each part of your body, one at a time, through meditation, invocation, affirmations, bringing attention to feeling your way back into your body. I think you've really, especially if you think about this, this prolonged experience of suspense, being upside down, at some point your body becomes numb. This is about coming back into your body and bringing peace into it, but really feeling every part of it, right? So this also has a lot to do with movement and worship of your body. And then with invocation, we're also talking about calling in the energies that are worthy of it, right? Because once we go through this growth process, we don't want to subject ourselves to the same energies that we once allowed in, because you have taken lots of great care and effort to heal and to regain your autonomy. And so then we have to be very choosy with this Queen of Swords of what kind of energies and situations we allow our bodies to experience after that. So whether that is quite literally the people that we allow into our space, or whether that is the foods that we allow into our bodies. Okay? I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really hope that it resonated. I hope it was interesting. And if you would like to book a personal reading, you can do so on my website. The links are below. Other than that, I do hope I get to read for you again sometime. Until then, take care.